Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Toye Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharda, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both ever be of mine. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Om peace, peace, peace. This morning we meet for Satsanga, that is the gathering of a Sangha to discuss Sat, truth, or pure existence, is also another definition for that word. That great word for divine reality in our tradition, Sat Chit Ananda. That is pure existence and pure knowledge and pure bliss, unalloyed bliss, which is uninterrupted, for the great seer who sits in meditation. And we have finished our morning meditation here at SRV Ashram in Hawaii on the Big Island. For an hour we sat, listening to the sounds of morning, saluting, as it were, the god and goddess Aditi, who was the awakening of all things, which is also the awakening of all beings to enlightenment, which we have a very fond and deep hope for, and which we work very deeply to try and bring about in this world of name and form. And many questions have come in for today's satsang, which is live streamed to our audience. Some of you are there looking on. We welcome you. And we plunge right into Atma Vichara, that is the inquiry into the nature of the self through this wonderful tradition that we're a part of called Vedanta, which includes in its scope yoga and Tantra and Samkhya and Buddhism and other very fine darshanas or clear ways of seeing truth in India. We are surrounded by a host of them when we take to the Indian path, which is one of our great boons. Just like we're surrounded by many, many deities, those of us who practice deity yoga, which is a very important part of our spiritual life, understand this, and that's where the first question comes from. That's why I bring it up. This question is from one of our students all the way in Hungary, one of our young students who was here recently and who's now going to college there. And he asks, or he says, in the different Vedic scriptures there are various gods and goddesses who are lifted to the loftiest positions and celebrated as supreme divinity. How should one fully accept, in heart and mind, the all-inclusive acknowledgement of the supreme divinity in every god, if one has already chosen one's own Ishtam? Well, a very profound question coming from a youthful person who is on the Vedantic path. Probably we should define the word Ishtam first for those of us who may have forgotten or new people tuning in from other traditions, because these other traditions are very important to Vedanta too. It is more of a tradition, more of a philosophy, more of a religion. It's really a way of existence, a way of acknowledging existence as one's own nature, as one's own self. So the word Ishtam takes a very important position in our cosmology and philosophy. It means chosen ideal, Ishtam, or Ishtadevata, or Ishtadevi. It could be male, it can be female. Obviously, it's God with form. Whereas in Vedanta, we don't have any problem, or we shouldn't have any problem with acknowledging both the formless reality, called Brahman, and God with form, called Ishvara. There's another root for that Sanskrit word Ishtam. The chosen ideal. And as Christ said, you get to the Father through the Son. So that's the idea also in Vedanta, that through rituals and worship and through acknowledging these gods and goddesses, as he says here, one begins to understand the nature of manifestation, of expression. And one's Ishtam helps one very much in deep meditation, because it's not really possible for the human soul, as heavily laden as it is in this day and age with concepts and relative ideologies and name and form and passions and desires and sankalpas and samskaras, if you know those words. That is basically habits of projection and mental impressions from previous lifetimes. It's not very easy for that being plagued or heavily laden with those types of things to jump from the lowest step to the highest step. Sri Ramakrishna said, you may be a good high jumper, and you could perch on the lowest step and in one huge leap make it to the top step, but you would never know what the steps in the middle were ever made of, because you had passed them by, and you would have to go back later and take them up, and some question in your mind, I wonder what those middle steps were like. So he's talking about this avastas, stage by stage growth in spiritual life, which is very important. Actually, it's good to sit and meditate. Some people naturally take to that path. If they've mastered meditation in a previous lifetime, we have no problem with that. But such is the case so often, that so many people sit to meditate without knowing the kingdoms of heaven within them, without knowing the deities, and without knowing the steps of cosmology, or without taking a philosophy, without studying the scriptures, without consulting a guru. All of these things are vitally important to the greater percentage of mankind. So you begin by exploring these steps. Eventually you'll find out, as Ramakrishna concluded the story, that the low step and the highest step and the middle steps are made of the same materials: brick, lime dust, wood. But you don't know that in the beginning. And so to say then, you don't know that God with form and God without form are really the same thing. Brahman and Ishvara are really the very same thing. One is just expressing its nature, and the other is keeping its nature indrawn. One's formless and one has form. And there's really no problem with that once you define and understand the way and come to know the way that Brahman expresses itself through its own modes of awareness. That's how Gaudapada puts it in the non-dual philosophy. Brahman expresses itself through its own modes. Atman imagines itself by its own powers, called Shakti. So, with a little bit of philosophical background around that question, we can take it more specifically. How should one fully accept in heart and mind this acknowledgement of the supreme divinity in every God, and still keep one's fealty to one's own Ishtam? Actually, the question would probably be better put as a statement. It's not how should one fully accept, it is one should accept fully. And that has to do, as is so nicely put here, with heart and mind. It is, if the heart doesn't accept that all-pervasive divinity in every form, not just the forms of gods and goddesses, but also the forms of other beings, the ones you love, even the ones you don't love, the ones that you hate. There has to be this sort of equal regard for all living beings, sensitivity, non-violence, non-hurtfulness, non-harming, and that kind of thing has to be there in regard to everyone and everything. And that's, of course, mentioned by all the great beings in all scriptures. So heart and mind, if the heart does not accept that, then it becomes emotional and weak. Now, if the mind doesn't accept it, it becomes narrow and sterile, and it can't form a philosophical basis. It can't accept the ideologies of the different philosophies and the various religious traditions of the world. So that was how I would answer the first 6 words of that sentence. How should one? One should. And then heart and mind, yes, very good. Open up the heart and mind to a universal level, accept the divinity in all beings, all gods, all goddesses, all ishtams. Then he ends up by saying, if one's already chosen one's ishtam, then how does one as it were, regard other ishtams with this same universal and non-judgmental tact that you've just developed. Basically, you could say here, in India, for instance, we give the example, there are really 5 main deities. There are many, many other supportive deities. But 5 main deities are there. You could say Vishnu, or we would call Krishna, and Shiva, and Divine Mother. She has her own religion in India, which is unique in all the world. And then Ganapatya, or Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, is very popular. And then Surya, sun, worship of the sun, not just as a golden orb in the sky, we say, but as like the first light of dawn, the dawning of awareness, the sun of knowledge, if you will. So you could see, like, even in that instance, a god or a goddess of the sun wouldn't just be worshipped as the sun, but it would be worshipped as the light that it brings. And the light that it brings, not just on the physical level, but the light that it brings on the mental level, on the intellectual level, on the spiritual level. So it goes far beyond just physics or the physical universe. So that I don't sidetrack too much, back to the main point of that question, those 5 deities, Shiva, Krishna, Ganapati, Surya, and Divine Mother, let's call her Durga for now, or Kali, or Saraswati, or Lakshmi. There you start getting into many names for the same Ishtam, you see, and that's part of the point. But those 5, the young Hindu child or aspirant in India needs to pick one. And so usually he's born into a family that's already worshipping one, so the matter is rather settled, and that worship has been going on for lifetimes, remember. So they're very much set in their worship of Krishna or Shiva, and so forth. Just like in India, some are born into Muslim families, so very much there in the worship of Allah. So ideals live side by side, you see, and should be able to do that with non-violence, with non-harming as the main idea, and with open-mindedness and open-heartedness too. So back again to my main point. These 5 deities, if you choose one, it's not like the other 4 go away. So all of a sudden this one is all-alone oneness, you see. It's an all-inclusive oneness we're talking about, not an all-alone oneness. So those 5, you choose one and the other 4 get behind it, you see, and support it. And so you are worshipping the same one God all the time, aren't you? And that very simple explanation, just using an example of Indian worship, is what is called universality, and it gives the validity, the underlying facility and good practical sense to all of religion. Very good question. Thank you for bringing it up, and that reminds us of the importance of universality, a principle whose time has come, I say. With the dawning of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, his advent in this world, we have Divine Mother coming to us now, and we also have this idea of the universality of all religions because of the various religions he practiced. A lot of people previously had said, all religions, they're manifestations of the same divinity. But then Ramakrishna came along and proved it by his own sadhana. So that's a very fine distinction to make, and a very great moment in our human history to know that that's happened. And now we need to put it into practice ourselves. The next question. Can you please advise us as to how best worship and master 2 of the dissolving forms of meditation in Nirguna Brahman, Tailadhara Jnana and Swarupa Jnana. So again, anyone looking on who is not familiar with these terms, for my students who aren't familiar with them, more study please. And for those of you who are tuning in new, no problem, we'll explain them for you. Basically, first of all, Nirguna Brahman is the term for formless reality, which we were just talking about. Actually, we weren't talking about it that much. The next question is, I don't understand the non-touch yoga. And I was going to say, well, it's also the non-speak yoga. You can't really talk about it. But back to this question, Nirguna Brahman is something you can't speak about, and so we didn't. We spoke about the 5 forms of God. Those are called Ishtam or Ishvara, and those are how you get to non-dual reality through the Son, through this great form of God who is the master of the universe, who is the father of the universe, or the mother of the universe. That having been said again, we're saying it in correlation with Nirguna Brahman. So God with form is Saguna, with attributes. God without form is Nirguna, without attributes. Gunas are attributes. We know there can be many gunas really, but there are 3 main ones, and that's a subject for a class really, or for a series of classes. But just think of attributes or not, or non-attributes. So that defines a little bit Nirguna Brahman. And then he talks about 2 types of forms of meditation on the formless. Tailadhara Jnana and Svarupa Jnana. Tailadhara means the flow of oil from one beaker to another. If you were to take 2 beakers and one was full of water and the other was empty, and you start to pour it, quite possibly you'd get a lot of splashing going on. But from a beaker of oil to another beaker of oil is just one perfect rainbow arc of oil flowing from one beaker into the other. The idea in that meditation is that your concentration, the concentration of your beaker, that's your mind, the contents of it, are going into the contents of the ocean. It's like river to ocean, you see. And so you hold that unbroken. So if you sit to do Tailadhara Jnana meditation in our tradition, then it's you sit, you focus, and that's it. You just pour yourself into your Ishtam. The Ishtam here, though, is not form. It does not have a form. That would be Saguna Brahman meditation. There are 6 different forms of that. But this particular 2 forms he's talking about is formless. I want to now go formless. I want to shut off my senses. I want to shut down my mind. I want to shut out the world. And I want to go formless. Because I've heard that the Almighty Father, Brahman, Allah, is formless, and that one meditates on that, one becomes that. See, so I must have that experience once in my lifetime. Hopefully more than once, but at least once. So that's Tailadhara Jnana for the viewers and for the ashramites here listening. As a reminder, Svarupa Jnana just means to meditate on your essence. And so that's more of a I am meditation rather than I am going to become. Tailadhara Jnana has a slight distinction of I am going to flow into Brahman. But Svarupa Jnana means I am Brahman. I don't need to flow. I'm already that, you see. So 2 very beautiful and distinct forms of formless meditation that we can practice. Now, to the point of his real question here, this devotee is from Oregon, and our SRB chapter there. He says, how best to practice and master those? Well, it's a non-speak type of yoga. It's a non-speak type of practice you're doing, so I can't tell you a lot about it. I can give you a few keys and a couple secrets. For Tailadhara Jnana, think of a waterfall. Just take a waterfall as your Ishtam, as your form. Imagine if you spent all day and all night at the edge of a waterfall. What would you eventually become aware of? That it doesn't stop, that it's continually flowing. There's no end to the flow. And the sound, the beautiful sound, you see, it just permeates you and causes you great peace, doesn't it? You feel completely washed through and through, as if the waterfall itself got into all the pores of your body and just cleaned it out, you see. So it's a very beautiful envisionment meditation, visualization meditation. And it's rather a Upasana type of meditation, like in Buddhism. So you just take that because it's what we call an alambana in yoga. An alambana is something you take as a support for your meditation. You could take one of these images on the altar to my left, you see. I could even take off of that a bell off of the altar. It doesn't have to be the image of a personality. I could take a bell, or I could take the icon of Rama and Sita there and take that off and meditate on it. That's called a support for your meditation. Why is it so beautiful? Because it keeps you from thinking of other things. Just put it that simply. Your mind is scattered. You can't focus. So take an ishtam, take an alambana, take a pratika or a pratima, they're called, symbols, images. Take an om sign. Take a candle in a windless place. That's how we ended our meditation today, chanting Yato Dipo Nivatastu Nengate Sopama Shmrita Yogino Yatachitasya Yunjato Yoga Atmanaha. That's out of the Bhagavad Gita. Means like a candle in a windless place. The mind of the yogi becomes like that. See? So when we were here in the West in the 60s, didn't we look at candles? It was our first meditation. Back in what was called affectionately the hippie time, you see. Oh man, let's get a black light and and light a candle in our room and glare and gaze at it, you see. And that will still my mind. So wherever you borrow these different images and these different icons and so forth, they're good for you. Because they really just reduce the vibrations of your mind. Now, when you are able to reduce the vibrations of your mind, then you can meditate on formlessness. Then your mind can become a flow of oil. In this case, a flow of consciousness from one beaker to another, without any break, without any splashing. Splashing here would mean distractions, right? Water to water, splash, splash, you see. That's no good, you see, because you're getting water outside the beaker, you see. But oil doesn't tend to do that. It's just homogeneous. You see, just tends to stay nicely in one container. So your container is small, your little body-mind mechanism, and that container is vast. And you just see that container like a hailstone sees an ocean, and you just go into it and you merge. So use the waterfall as an image. It's not like formless reality can all of a sudden just be formless reality, you see. For you have to approach it through stages. So even in formless practice there are stages. You can't just go, okay, I'm Brahman, game over. Who can do that? We wish we could do that sometimes. Oh Lord, take the world away. It's not such a nice place after all. Or I'm tired of happiness, I want joy. I'm tired of joy, I want peace. I'm tired of peace, I want contentment. I'm tired of contentment, I want bliss. I'm tired of bliss, I want oneness. So you go on until you get this homogeneous oneness. So there are stages and practices you can use in formless meditation. Sometimes they will borrow from the world of name and form. The highest level of name and form, Mahamaya, they call her. Now, in the other Swarupajan, whereas you took a waterfall for the image for Tailadarajan, because it's just constantly pounding next to you, endless supply of water coming from who knows where, from the skies, ultimately, you see, just constantly feeding this river that's pulsing this waterfall through the landscape. So that was your meditation in Tailadarajan. I must become just like the waterfall pouring into that pool, constantly, without end. There is no end to me. I am vast, I am conditionless, I am flowing, I am flowing. Now for Swarupajan, use the ocean. Ocean, you see, has everything flowing into it, but it itself is so vast you cannot see where its water comes from. You'll just have to sort of imagine the amounts of rainfall and the amounts of rivers, the many rivers that flow into it. So for that, it's an essence, isn't it? It's just one still, homogeneous essence. So Swarupajan is like that. I am now the ocean. I am just contemplating the infinite nature of my own consciousness, which is one with the consciousness of Brahman. I and my Father are one. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am that ocean. And so this is a cut to the chase meditation for those who are ready for it. So let's maybe get rid of some of these limited concepts that formless meditation is either empty. Oh yes, it's empty of form, and it's empty of name, and it's empty of suffering. It's empty of laziness and restlessness. It's a good thing it is empty of those things, but it's not empty of essence. And that will be proven to you in Svarupa Jnana, because the word Svarupa means essence. You are that essence. And you cannot be anything but that essence. That's your true nature. You're an unproduced essence. You cannot create a soul. You cannot even create a world. It just is, always. It's just whether it's come into form or not. That's all. And when it has come into form, you'll have to deal with those gunas, saguna, all those attributes, and the best way to deal with them is with an ishtam, with an ideal, Vivekananda says. And if there's no form there, then it doesn't matter, does it? You're one with the essence. So, no mind, no matter, never mind. This is how my teacher used to put that. That is, if there's no mind, there will be no matter. See, if there's no matter, then never mind. There's no issue in the first place. So when matter's gone, you are that essence. But when mind comes dancing back, you're going to have to deal with name and form. Best way to do that is with Upasana Jnana, with meditations on higher forms. Because why? Because people are meditating on the lower forms all the time. Everyone's meditating. It's just, what is the quality of your meditation? Is the quality of your meditation the TV? You're meditating on that all the time? Or is it brooding on your imperfections? Or is it lust or anger or greed or envy or jealousy? Or is it power hunger? What is the quality of your meditation? Because everything is divine reality. And where are you located personally on that scope, on that scale of possibilities for meditation? Where are you located? Locate your consciousness higher. See, higher. That means deeper, deeper to these divine realities. And then you will awake and you will find your way. Now, I hope that was sufficient for that question. We're taking about 15 minutes, hopefully, for each of these questions. Third one is, I don't understand why non-touch yoga is called non-touch yoga. Please explain. Well, this comes from our last 3 classes on Asparsha Yoga, the non-touch yoga of Gaudapada. That has been what we've been going through over the last 3 Sundays. Today is the 4th Sunday. We will go through, has it been 3 Sundays or has it been 2? I think 3 Sundays. Our 4th day, our 4th Sunday now, that class is now today, and you can tune in at 2:30 Hawaiian time, or the appropriate time in your own time zone, to hear 3 hours of speaking about Asparsha Yoga, non-touch yoga. So this question comes from that. Why is it called non-touch yoga? Because there has to be some great way, the great way, all capitalized, you see, which epitomizes what we were just talking about, Tailadhara Jnana or Svarupa Jnana. What epitomizes what's beyond Ishvara, what's beyond God with form, the divine reality itself. I and my Father are one type of thinking. See, this ocean of consciousness that all forms get dissolved in. All things, all forms are soluble into Brahman, we say in Vedanta, into that vast, conditionless reality. You'll have to meditate on that and realize your identity with that before you actually fully comprehend that. Until then, it'll be a rather intellectual experience for you, which is what the next question is, which is coming. So, but non-touch yoga can also mean non-hearing yoga, because it goes beyond Om. See what Gaudapada is talking about. He talks about first Om and its 3 matras, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And then the 4th called Turiya. So he's talking about 4 states of consciousness. So it's going to take, for example, non-hearing yoga, if we want to talk about it that way. First you hear things outwardly, don't you, with your ears. Then you go into dream tonight and you hear things inwardly, right? Because you have inner ears, right? You don't just have an inner eye, you also have an inner ear. And when you go into deep sleep, it's like that waterfall that you were just sitting next to all day for 24 hours, day and night. It saturates you and all you can hear is that sound. Even when you leave the waterfall and go away to the city, the sound of the waterfall still keeps in your consciousness, doesn't it? for hours. So in the same way, if you've gone into deep sleep for a good long time, then you come out, the reason why you're not identifying so much with the outer world is because you were saturated in the word Om. And it hums constantly, and you got close to that hum. You got close to that waterfall, maybe you even immersed in it and let it pour on top of you, you see. So you go beyond that when you go to the Almighty Father, to Allah, to Brahman, to Satchidananda. You go beyond that. It's non-hearing. You see, even the sound of Om will disappear. So why not call it non-hearing yoga? Why not call it non-smelling yoga? Or, as I was just saying, non-seeing. Because John said in the Bible, no one has seen God. Well, he saw Jesus, didn't he? And Jesus was God with form. Jesus was Ishtam. Jesus had taken on name and form. Jesus wasn't the name and form. I hope we don't ever imagine that. And he wasn't the personality either. He took these on as assumptions. He was a formless reality. I am the light. Does light have form? It's everywhere, isn't it? Saturating everything. You can put it into a form, like into a light bulb or into a candle, then it's a pratika, or it's an image to meditate on. I've actually conditioned light here down to where I can understand it, you see. But the boundless ocean of Brahman, which is the light of consciousness, you cannot dumb that down. When you meditate on that, you become that. You just get saturated with it and you get sucked into it, just like a hailstone into an ocean. So let's call it the non-sight yoga, see too. You can't see God. No one has ever seen God. We've only seen expressions of God walking around, and Jesus was one of the greatest of those. Well, this is basically what I'm saying. It's beyond the senses. That's one way of explaining it. The other way is, which I started to explain, was there has to be a philosophy, or even beyond philosophy, an open space beyond religion, as our founder Lex Hixon used to call it. And that epitomizes Swarupa Jan, Tailadara Jan, that actually says something, even if it's a non-speak way of saying it, about divine reality that's beyond form. It has to be pointed to, isn't it? Inference is a very powerful tool. It's a matter of faith for most people. And materialists and atheists and so forth will only use inference in a physical way. For instance, oh, I see smoke on that distant hill, so then I infer there's fire there. Well, then if you see form all around you, why don't you infer that there's a formless reality behind it? You see what I mean? Inference is almost akin to proof, pramana. So these are very important things that the Nyaya philosophy of India, one of the sort of, talk about unspoken, one of the more background yogas, pathways, darshanas, was very powerful at expressing, very good at expressing it. So inference is very important. We'll have to use that. So then infer from asparsha yoga, or non-touch, or non-seeing, or non-sight, or non-hearing, or non-smelling, that this is something that cannot be touched. Like the rap song, can't touch this, you see. You'll never be able to touch Brahman. In other words, you'll never be able to defile Brahman. It's the only thing, and I'm quoting Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa here, that has ever not been defiled by the tongue of man. So let's call it the non-spoken yoga too. The non-speak yoga, you see. I think that probably gets across the point without laboring too much more. Now, the final question here is, how can I get deeper than just a surface understanding of teachings? There's a few more sentences here, but we could stop there and just answer that question, because that's a concern on many people's minds. I'll take that up in a minute. To finish, for instance, there's the teaching of the 5 categories: existence, knowledge, bliss, name and form. I can intellectualize that I am removing name and form from whatever object or situation I'm focused on, but I'm not consciously experiencing bliss, knowledge, or existence. And is this just for meditation or while moving about in the world too? Okay, well, there's 3 questions there really. To take the first one, how can I get deeper than just a surface understanding of the teachings? And this person is using that in terms of the 5 categories. This is from one of the Upanishads, says, Divine Mother Saraswati says, I am 5-fold. I have existence, knowledge, and bliss, and then I have name and form. Concentrate on these and put these behind you. Don't concentrate on name and form. I was just saying, we meditate, right? All of us, everyone does. That is, if you concentrate at all, then you meditate. And everyone's concentrating on something. Some people are concentrating on vileness and viciousness. You see, it's just their nature at this time. Some people are concentrating on money. Some people are concentrating on fame. Others are concentrating on how worthless I am. Some are concentrating on how great I am. You see? So the whole spectrum of meditation is out there if you want to put it in an analogy like that. So then you want to focus your meditation on the more unique categories. That is, you'll get name and form behind you because everyone's concentrating on those and they're not getting anywhere. They're only getting somewhere if they take a higher name or a higher form, like Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, Moses, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, Divine Mother. If they're concentrating on those forms, you see people making some headway. Boy, they're actually content. They have peace of mind. Why do they have it and I don't? Figure it out. They have a friend. They have a friend in high places. You need friends in high places. And there's no higher friend than Ishvara or Ishvari. And if you bring that into your life, it's like accepting Jesus, or taking refuge in Buddha, or becoming a devotee of Ramakrishna. You see, there are thousands, millions of people who have done that now. In our tradition alone, our extended family is about 4 or 5 million strong right now in the Ramakrishna tradition. And he passed away in 1886, so in a very short time, 5 million people have come flocking to him. He's a huge doorway into divine reality. He's a huge steamliner that can take thousands of souls across the ocean of samsara. Why don't you get on the steamliner with the rest of us? You want to stay back with the world while it goes to hell in a handbasket? Be my guest. You'll just have to do it lifetime after lifetime, that's all. So get your salvation at least. Salvation is associated with Ishvara. Liberation is associated with Almighty Father, with Brahman, with Allah. Make those distinctions and you'll make spiritual headway. So, back to the idea, name and form, people have been concentrating on that a lot, and she says here, or he says here, this devotee says, I'm not getting existence, knowledge, and bliss from just taking name and form away. So, obviously there's more than just transcending name and form. You can transcend name and form in deep sleep tonight, it still comes dancing back when you wake up, doesn't it? You can transcend name and form in a particularly good meditation one day. It still comes dancing back when you come out of meditation, right? And it comes back with all its insinuations, with all of its power. So you're going to have to master name and form. Name and form happens in waking and it happens in dreaming. It goes away in deep sleep. It goes away in a deep meditation. It goes away at death, and it goes away in samadhi. So this is how to begin to get more essence out of your practice. Is basically what's being asked here. How do I go to a deeper level of the teachings? I can hear about name and form and how I should transcend them, but they come dancing back. And when I strip them away, I'm not necessarily experiencing ananda, bliss, sat, existence, chit, knowledge, see, jnanam. So what's the problem here? See, how can I rectify that situation? So that's what I'm suggesting. That you will need to study the scriptures and take teachings from the preceptors that deepen your meditation so that you can transcend name and form and still keep hold of that essence, which is called swarupa, in your heart and mind. So it's connecting all 5 of those questions. How do I or incorporating all 5 of these questions we just took, 4 of these questions we just took, you see. How do I keep my heart open and my mind expanded? Using the Ishtam, taking the teachings and getting to a deeper level. These are all key questions. And a person, as I said, doesn't need to ask how can we. It's that we must. It's what we're here to do. So perseverance. If you want a short word for it, perseverance. Keep up the practice. Try and intensify. Get clarification around your questions like this in satsang. Enough of that going through the mind will finally give up. When I say the mind gives up, it means the ego part of the mind. It'll finally give up and it'll accept, it'll surrender. Then it'll take an ideal, an ishtam, and then it'll get to the formless Brahman through the sun. You see, it's all a matter of time well spent instead of time wasted, spinning your wheels all the time, going nowhere faster. Because it's the nature of divine reality, and that's your nature too, to be immovable, to be all-pervasive. And if you meditate like Swarupajan on my essence, then you'll find this out, and you will begin to get bliss. Remember, this is also a matter of your temperament. Some people's temperament is to go toward the wisdom traditions. Some people go toward the faith traditions. Some people go to formless tradition, formless reality. Their temperament draws them. And also their past lifetimes, what they've attained, draws them. But you must also know this, that some person who has attained formless samadhi in a previous lifetime might have jumped steps to do it. And so when they come back, they may be looking to fill in their knowledge, because you cannot be a good teacher if you don't know the cosmology. If you jump from the lowest to the highest step and then all of a sudden you find yourself back in the body and people ask you, well, come up to you and say, you really have a great light shining out of you. Can you tell me how you got that? And you tell them, no, I can't. You're not a good teacher, you see. So, Brahmagyan and Prema Bhakti, that is the highest wisdom and the deepest love, those two are what great teachers have. They have both knowledge of form and formlessness. And how do they get it? In this baking furnace of the world. That's where gurus are made. It's where great teachers are made, great souls are made. There again, some beings may not be cut out or destined to be teachers. They're just exemplars. They're walking around with light. They don't need to teach, see. So it's not like one's higher than the other and one's lower than the other. It's not a matter ever of superior and inferior. It's a matter of what is. And that's non-touch yoga right there. It's a matter of what is. We'll talk more about that today at 2:30 Hawaii time. And just to end with that final aspect of the question here. And is this all just for meditation or while moving about in the world too? I would say both, because if you're in a formless state, then of course the world doesn't exist for you. It has gone away, means gone into abeyance. It's gone back into your own consciousness. You've taken all forms and dissolved it back into your formless awareness, and you are that. Then when you come back out, then you have to have that facility, that capacity, that ability, and that intention to spread these teachings far and wide. Whether you do it through words or just by silent example, that's again going to be up to your temperament, to your destiny, to your karmas, to your samskaras. But I would say the answer to that question is both. That one needs to have that facility to go into formless reality and come out of formless reality and still be able to act wisely in the world. There was a great teacher in Sri Ramakrishna's time. It's funny, he was much more famous than Sri Ramakrishna was in Calcutta at the time. His name was Keshab Chandra Sen, head of the Brahma Samaj, and one branch of it. And he loved Sri Ramakrishna a lot. Sri Ramakrishna they used to get together and talk. And Keshab, although he was much more well-known and more famous at the time, he really admired Sri Ramakrishna. And so one time he said to him, just like you, I want to go into formless reality, because Kesha hadn't had Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Saw Sri Ramakrishna going into these high samadhis, and people couldn't understand them, so of course they wouldn't go flocking to Ramakrishna, because who wants to become formless? That doesn't look like any fun, just sitting there for hours. So Keshab Chandra Sen said to him once, I want to go into formless reality like you, Master, and go to the farthest shore, swim the ocean, and go to the farthest shore and never come back again. He meant never come back to name and form again. And Sri Ramakrishna said, oh, Lord Keshab, don't do that. What will happen to all these beings that are following you? You must go to the farthest shore and experience the ocean of Brahman, but you must come back and tell others about it. So it gives you that full circle, the idea. Yes, you must use it in meditation, for sure, for certain, you must have that experience. You must also be able to come out of that formless state and walk around in the world as an exemplar of that light. I am the light of the world. See, once you had that I and my Father are one experience, you come back and you shine it. You shine the light. That's another expression out of the 60s, you see, that we picked up on. So very important. But that Keshab Chandra even had the idea that there was a formless reality to get into is very, very rare. Most people will never even think of that. Even devotees will never even think of that. Like, they'll just think everything is about devotion and singing songs, you see. Oh, let's go into the forest and sing, or go down to the beach and have a kirtan or whatever, And formless Brahman, that's the furthest thing from their mind. Even though they're sitting right next to the ocean, you see. And that's saying to them, jump in, jump in. So Ramakrishna said, yes, jump in, Keshab, jump in, but come back. Those greatest beings are those who come back out of the ocean of Brahman and are able to gather themselves back from meditation, is how he put it in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. Ishvara Kotis, they're able to gather their mind back from formless meditation. Now, first you have to have formless meditation. Not just for 15 minutes, or 2 minutes, or an hour, or a 1-week retreat of trying to get into formless meditation. You actually have the experience of formless meditation, where you just went out of your senses, out of your mind. There's a beautiful song by Ram Prasad who says, "Oh Mother, drive me completely out of my mind. What need have I for rationale and knowledge? Just drive me completely out of my mind." So it reached a state where the teachings weren't deep enough. See, he couldn't go deep enough in the teachings, hadn't pierced the surface yet. You know how when you're a child in a swimming pool, you see, you haven't learned how to tuck and dive yet, so you can't leave the surface of the water. You try and get underneath and you just float. But to learn to tuck and dive, you see, means you have to take a big breath and you have to take a risk. And you have to exert strong, straight down, in order to get to the depths, see, in order to be able to break the surface. It's the same with the surface of relativity and the depths of reality. You'll have to learn the tuck and dive move called sadhana. You have to pierce the surface of relativity, see beyond appearances, go beyond Maya, transcend the world of name and form, seek emptiness, seek freedom from nature. There's so many ways and so many traditions that it has been put by great seers and saints and sages. So, once you have had that experience and make sure you have it, then come back and tell us all about it. We're waiting here. We'll even live stream it for you. So here we will end with a chant and see you this afternoon, hopefully, on live streaming class at 2:30 Hawaii time, on Gaudapada's non-touch, non-sight, non-hearing, non-smelling, beyond the senses, beyond Om, yoga. Om Bhadram Karnibhihi Shrinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshajirya Jatraha Stirai Rangaishtushtvamsas Tanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, and may we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting. And may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the universe, with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.